World War II was one of the most devastating conflicts in human history, and definitely is for modern history. So in this episode of Off Topic, I will be discussing, actually this episode of Wissen Off Topic, I should say, will be discussing which of the three main Allied countries, which was more important. Sorry friends, but you were conquered in the first year. No offense, you still got to occupy some territory at the end, and you got liberated, but ultimately, France did not play a huge role. But the three main countries were the US, the UK, and the USSR, more commonly known as the Soviet Union. And for those who don't know, I'll just go over what each of those initials stand for. The US is the United States of America. The UK, as it was known then, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and the USSR being the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Now essentially Russia. Because Russia is a successor state by Russia and everyone else. But that's kind of off topic in this episode of Off Topic, so which of those three were more important? Well, most Americans will go ahead and say America or America. I can't never, some Americans in their extreme patriotism drop the A. I'm always baffled by that. But anyhow, that's a tangent for another video. But, and then of course, and the UK is like to the Americans, really, cool down. You're not as important as you think you are. And I think that's true. And the USSR definitely suffered the most casualties of the three, and definitely did most of the fighting. But I think without any one of them, if one of them was not to have been in the fight or was to have been knocked out, the war would have been lost for the Allied powers. Let's begin chronologically with UK, Britain. They were the first country of the three main ones to declare war. They fought in France and evacuated Dunkirk, and then the Battle of Britain, where they were able to defeat the Luftwaffe, the unstoppable Luftwaffe. Apparently they were not that unstoppable as they thought they were. So Germany was not able to invade the UK and get them to surrender. Because Operation C9 did call for the invasion. That was the planned invasion of the UK, but I've read and watched that Nazi Germany knew they could never fully invade the UK, and their main goal was actually to get them to surrender. But nevertheless, if the UK was knocked out of the war, Hitler would have turned his attention to Russia like he did in our timeline and invaded. And then in Russia, even without Lend-Lease, would have been able to put up one hell of a fight, for lack of a better term. And so yeah. And then the US, Lend-Lease. That probably was the key for the US, Lend-Lease. The arsenal of democracy, we were called. So yeah, we essentially, this is kind of how you can say what America was a supplier, the UK was the US supplied, the UK was essentially beneficial land, and the Soviet Union provided the troops. In a way, is how you can look at it. Granted, that's a much so simplified, but if you want to look at the roles that each country played. Soviet Union, if the Soviet Union wasn't there, imagine how many German troops would have been on the protecting the Atlantic Wall. D-Day would not have succeeded if Russia was not also fighting the Germans in the east. On the Russian front, the Eastern Front, holding their attention while American and British and Canadian forces prepared to land on the beaches of Normandy, or Calais, as the Germans thought, because of Allied misdirection campaigns. Same as Calais, but that's beyond the point. All three countries were needed for the war. If the U.S. was not involved, okay, if we were not involved militarily, the Allies may still have been able to win. But if we were not involved economically and logistically, the Allies would have lost. We provided the trucks, the planes, the tanks, the bullets, the clothes, the food that really helped feed and arm the Allied war effort. That's what we mainly did, especially beforehand. We were involved beforehand. The UK. Well, the UK gave us a staging area for the invasion of Germany, of Europe, the liberation of Europe. Imagine if the UK had fallen and the US decided to get in the fight against Germany after the UK fell. Well, we're over a total continent separate. Sure, we actually had Iceland at the time we controlled the military. Thanks, Great Britain, for that. Great Britain conquered them, and so they could use their troops elsewhere, because they didn't want Germany taking Iceland. They conquered Iceland, and they gave it to us to keep an eye on, instead of Nazi Germany wouldn't get them, so they could actually fight Nazi Germany. See how much involved we were beforehand. But, so yeah, we did that. And so, we would have had that as a staging point, but then we would have essentially had to invade probably the UK before we invaded. We would have to have another invasion step that would have cost manpower. And that's assuming we even bothered to fight Nazi Germany. There was a strong Nazi sentiment in America at the time, believe it or not. It's kind of dark, and some people apparently want to go back there, but still crazy people in my opinion. I'll still respect their differences. I'll just tell them they're wrong, but they can still believe what they want. But I'll just tell them they're wrong, and that's it. I won't give them any other acknowledgement. Can't give them any power. But that's way off topic. But yeah, America did have that strong sentiment at the time. But the superstar, most Americans wanted to be neutral. And we did not like communists, so if Britain had fallen, we may have been willing to fight alongside Nazi Germany to defeat the USSR, defeat communism. I'm not saying that would have happened, but that could have happened if the UK had fallen. But I think no matter what, America would have still fought the Japanese. That's the thing. We fought the Japanese. To say that America won the war in Europe, collaboration between the three main powers, I said. But for the Pacific, America was the main power. It was us and the Japanese duking it out. Sure, the USSR got involved very late in the war, and if it wasn't for that and the atomic bombs, well, the war would have been longer. Because there is reason to believe that because of the atomic bombs and the fact that the Soviet Union had just declared war on Japan, that the Japanese Empire was thinking, let's cut the deal with the Americans before the Soviets come in. Rather have one power occupying us than being divided. I'm only kind of speculating, but I would say that's a reasonable speculation to have. And of course, I think it is reasonable given what we saw in Germany, and if they were seeing that kind of later, they might have saw the readings on the wall and took their cue. But definitely they knew, because they didn't know how we used all our atomic bombs in those two atomic bomb attacks. And of course we would definitely made more, we would have, I'm sure, but how were they supposed to know? And with the threat of a war on two fronts, a threat of land invasion, devastating bombing raids, and true fronts. Yeah, I can see why they were willing to surrender. But even if Soviet Union didn't get involved, like what, the last few days of the war with Japan, that that America did most of the fighting in the Pacific. So for World War II, I'll just say all three major countries were equally important in Europe. Asia's in the Pacific theater, Asia, China and the US were actually the top two powers over there, the most important. Probably America being slightly more important than China. And speaking of the war in Pacific, last week I believe, on November 27th, no, not last week, sorry. I'm recording this 2 weeks in advance. Today is the 11th. This is out on, I'm recording this well in advance. When my video on what if President Truman did not use the atomic bomb against Japan. So I suggest you actually go and watch that video. I talk a little bit about what's going on. I actually am planning on doing a part 2 of that video in January, so you can subscribe to that. But that is kind of an interesting thing that you may want to know about and read. But so yeah, as I said, in conclusion, the US, the UK, and the USSR were equally important in winning World War II in Europe. The Pacific, as I said, it goes to America, with China in a close second place because they did a lot of fighting like the Soviets did. But given the Japanese resilient, if they weren't there, we would have had probably just as much of a hard time. If China wasn't there, it would have been equally as hard, if not only a little bit harder. This would have been, man, that's a totally different topic there, but yeah. Yeah, America was definitely the most important as the three main allied powers in the Pacific, but for Europe, they all were equally important. So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe for future content, including the content I mentioned earlier, along with a video in January. I'll be talking about America's importance in both world wars and comparing them. So subscribe to be notified of that. You can also, to make sure you're notified, ring the bell. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. Have a good one.